This short video will summarize the initial steps in the Marty Bergen hand evaluation method. At the Amelia Island Duplicate Bridge Club, I use Marty's methods to help students who want to learn more about evaluating their hands do so. Marty's been a bridge theorist for a long time and has written a lot of excellent books, but in my opinion, his hand evaluation tools are some of his best additions to bridge. And one thing I like about Marty's method is that if you look at a hand and apply your methods, do you get the right kind of point count that would get to the contract that you think you should be in? For example, we know that if you have a combined 25 to 26 high card points, you should probably be in game. If you have a combined 32 to 33 high card points, you probably should be in slam. And if you have a combined 38 to 40 high card points, being in grand slam might be the best idea. And with that kind of background, when I look at a hand like this, I say, what does your hand evaluation method tell you about the level you should be in? Well, if we look at 13 spades, we all think, well, we should be in grand slam in spades. That's easy. What's the problem? But the question is, how do you evaluate this hand just using your point count hand evaluation type method? For example, if you only count high card points, this hand has 10 high card points, which isn't even enough to maybe even open, much less reach game or slam. So, but we all know you're going to be in slam. So what if you, okay, I count my long suits and my short suits. So I look at my hand and I say I've got 10 high card points and 3 voids. That's 5 points for each void. That's 10 high card points. That comes to 25. We should be in game. Well, we know that's silly. And so maybe you count a point for every card in your long suit, so you got 25 and you add 13, you're right at maybe 38, but that's sort of rough and not very good. Your point count method, this is an excellent grand slam, obviously. Your point count method should get you up to around 40 points easily and consistently. So as we review Marty's method, we will show how this hand in his method evaluates to 40 points. The other thing I like about Marty's method is he breaks the hand evaluation down initially into 2 phases. Phase 1 is when you first dealt your hand and you look at it, how good is the hand? Count your points. And points will be more than high card points, as we'll see shortly. And then, after you find a fit, readjust your point count to take into effect extra factors. And so he calls these 2 steps, he calls the first step determining your starting points, which we'll show you on the next slide. And then the second step, after you have at least an 8 card fit, he breaks it down into whether you're going to be the dummy or the declarer. And for our purposes, and I think his, declarer would be the hand with the most trumps, or the one that we know has the most trumps, as opposed necessarily to whoever actually plays the hand. So let's look at starting point analysis. So for starting points, it's sort of like what you're probably used to. The first thing you do when you pick up your hand is you count your high card points. Aces are worth 4, kings are worth 3, and so forth. And then Marty wants you to take into account, and I do too, wants you to take into account your long suits, because long suits can be set up for extra winners. So he adds 1 point for every card in any suit over 4 cards in length. So if you have a 5 card suit, you would add 1 point. If you have a 6 card suit, you would add 2 points. If you had a 7 card suit, you'd add 3 points, and so on. If you have 5 card suits, you add 1 point for each 5 card suit. Then he considers, a good suit is stronger than a bad suit. So what he says is, reasonably enough, if you have a 4 card or longer suit with 3 or more of the top 5 honors, ace, king, queen, jack, 10, add a point. It doesn't matter if you have 4 honors, 5 honors. If the suit has 3 or more and it's 4 cards or longer, you add a point for that being what he calls a quality suit. And then part of the rationale, and if you read his book or if you read his articles, you'll find part of the rationale for this next step is that an ace in a 10 is worth nothing in the normal hand count that we saw above on Count Your Honors, and an ace is worth 4 points. And bridge theorists for some time have told us that an ace is undervalued at 4 points. An ace is worth more than 4 points, maybe 4 1/3, 4 1/4 points. And a 10 is worth more than 0 points. A 10 might be worth a quarter of a point, a third of a point. And they also say that queens and jacks, which they lump together with the pejorative term quacks, that quacks aren't worth as much as they appear to be. In other words, a queen is really not worth 2 points. It might be worth 1.75, 1.8 points. And a jack isn't really worth 1 point. It's worth something less than 1, maybe 0.75 again. There's some arguments about exactly where they fall in. But so Marty says if you have a whole bunch of extra, aces and tens compared to your queens and jacks, you've undervalued your point count. For example, if you have 3 aces and they're worth a third of a point more than 4, that would be 1 point more. And if a bunch of tens are worth something, you have 4 tens, maybe that's worth a point or more. So what he says to do is to count in sum your number of aces and tens, count those up, and then count your number of quacks, that is queens and jacks, and subtract quacks from the aces and tens. And if you have an excess of 3, 4, or 5 aces, when you total up your aces and tens, you got 3 of them more than the number of quacks you have, or 4 of them more than the number of quacks you have. Add 1 more point to your starting point total. If you have 2 more, it doesn't matter. You got to have 3 or more. And if you ever happen to get 6 or more aces, combined aces and tens, then you have combined quacks. Add 2 points. And the reason for that is if you got 3 extra aces more than you have queens and jacks, your hand is undervalued by a point. If you have 3 aces but 3 queens and jacks, extra values for the aces and tens are wiped out by the extra values for the queens and jacks, so you don't add any points. And of course you do the opposite. If you have too many queens and jacks, then you have aces and tens. If you have 3 or more total queens and jacks, then you have total aces and tens. Subtract a point. Or if you have just a hand that's nothing but queens and jacks and you got no aces and tens, subtract 2 points. It requires an excess of 6 to subtract 2 points. And then it's pretty obvious that a stiff jack or a stiff queen doesn't carry the full weight of an honor because it's not helping you do much in setting up suits in your hand. So Marty describes something called a dubious honor. A dubious honor would be one of these minor honors, queen or jack, or maybe even a stiff king, some questionable value to that honor, so he subtracts a point for it. So if you have a jack singleton, it's not worth anything. A jack doubleton, it's not worth anything. A queen singleton is still worth a point, but not 2 points. A queen doubleton is still worth a point, but not 2 points. It's worth 1 point. So he's going to argue, and we're going to push for subtracting a point for dubious honors. Now there's an exception to this. Once your partner bids that suit, if he bids naturally any suit that you have a singleton queen or singleton jack or doubleton queen jack, give yourself that point back. It's going to help your partner's suit. He says he's got him. You having an honor is going to be useful. Okay, so here's 4 examples of hands where we can practice calculating starting points. Nobody's bid yet. You've picked up these hands. Starting with hand A, according to the rules we just outlined, how many starting points do you have? Take your time and try to calculate them, and press pause now until you've calculated the starting points for example A, and then you can restart the video. Example A starts with 24 high card points, so that's the first step in calculating your starting points. And then we notice right off the bat it's got a very nice quality club suit, a 4-card or longer suit with 3 of the top 5 honors, and it meets that requirement. The club suit is also a 6-card suit, so in addition to the 1 point for being a quality suit, we get 2 more points for the 5th, 1 for the 5th and 1 for the 6th club, giving us 2 points. And then we notice that we have 3 aces and 2 quacks, so there's no adjustment for excess aces and tens or no adjustments for too many quacks. There is, however, a dubious Jack of Spades doubleton, so we're going to subtract a point for that. So when we total all these up, we start with 24, we add 3, and we subtract 1, we end up with 26 starting points. And so if you calculated board A right, you're probably going to get all the rest of them right. But here we get another chance to practice. So let's do as before. You can pause the video if you want to calculate the points yourself before you press play to see the calculations. In example B, you start with 22 high card points. You have a 7-card spade suit headed by the Ace King 10, so that meets the definition of a quality suit, so you get a bonus point for that. And since you have 7 spades, you get 1 point for the 5th spade, 1 point for the 6th spade, and 1 point for the 7th spade. So that's 3 extra points. There are 3 aces and 2 tens for a total of 5, and there's only 2 quacks. So since the combination of aces and tens exceeds the combinations of queens and jacks, known as quacks, by 3, you get a bonus point for that. The doubleton king queen of clubs is a dubious honor, so that's, you lose a point for that, but obviously the stiff ace is not dubious. You're going to win a trick. So the total starting points for this hand will be 26. Now let's look at the third example. Example C, and as before, if you want to calculate the points before you see how they're calculated, you can pause the video and then press play when you're ready to see the answers provided. In sample C, you start with 12 high card points. There are 2 5-card suits, so you get a bonus point for each of the 5-card suits for a total of 2. Neither of the long suits are a quality suit. You have 4 quacks and no aces and no tens, so you have excessive quacks, so you lose a point. The singleton diamond queen and the doubleton spade king jack are both dubious. You lose a point for each of those. So when you add all these up and subtract the dubious values, you start off with 11 starting points, 1 point less than the high card point total. And the last example is D, and as before, go ahead and pause the video if you want to calculate the points before you see them on the screen. In example D, you start with 10 high card points. You get 1 extra point for the 5-card diamond suit. The diamond suit is not a quality suit, so there's no points there. There are no excess of aces and tens versus queens and jacks. There's no dubious honors, so the total starting points on this hand is 11. So that's just 4 quick examples to show you how to calculate your starting points. Now let's go and think about the hands after you open and find a fit, or your partner opens and you find a fit. How do you calculate dummy points, and how do you calculate? So those were our 4 examples for calculating starting points, and you can see that the hands can vary somewhat. But now we're ready to look at dummy points and declare points after you find a fit. Dummy, if the hand that doesn't supposedly have the longest number of trumps, uses a counting method where he only now adds in short suit points. So once an 8-card fit is found and your hand's going to be the dummy, you can add short suit points. And you're all used to adding 3 points for a singleton, 1 point for a doubleton, 5 points for a void. We don't do that, and there's a reason for that. Your number of points you add will depend a little bit upon how many trump supports you have. For example, if you have a doubleton, it doesn't matter whether you have 3, 4, or 5 card support, add 1 point. You've been doing that all along. For a singleton, if you only have 3 card support, only add 2 points. And the reason for that is the opponents might lead a trump and get in and lead another trump, and you don't get to ruff very many things. But if you have 4 card support, you can certainly add the 3 points that you're used to, or a 5 card support, you can add the 3 points you're used to. Now voids, the rule is simple. You add the number of points for the number of cards you have up to 5. So if you have a void with 3 card support, you add 3 points. If you have a void with a 4 card support, you add 4 points. And if you have a void with 5 card support, you add 5 points. So here's some examples for calculating dummy points. You're just adding short suit points with the concept that the number of trumps you have in support for partner will affect how many points you get for various short suits. So we'll start with the first example in the upper left hand corner. It starts off with 12 starting points, and then if you support your partner's spade suit because you have 4 card support and you have a void, you can add 4 points for the void. So you get your void points added in there, so your hand jumps to 16 dummy points. Let's move to the hand on the lower left hand side. So you're supporting your partner's spade suit. You start off with 10 starting points. You have a doubleton. You do have 3 card support, so you add 1 point for the doubleton, so you can now have 11 dummy points. So a lot of times this is referred to as total points, but we're looking at the hand from dummy's perspective, so dummy has 11 dummy points. Now the hand on the upper right hand panel, now you're supporting your partner's diamond suit. You start off with 8 starting points. You have a void, so unlike the hand to the left, when on the top left where you only added 4 points for the void, since you have 5 trumps, you add 5 points for the void as long as you have 5 card trump support. So your hand now jumps to a total of 13 dummy points. And we'll look at the hand on the bottom right. You're supporting your partner's heart suit. You have a singleton. You have 4 card trump support, so you add 3 points for the singleton. If you only had 3 card heart support, you would add only 2 points. So you now have 20 dummy points in support of partner. The opposite, when we look at the hand from declarer's point of view, declarer gets to add short suit points, in a manner somewhat similar to short suits points that dummy added. But declarer also gets to add points for extra length. So we'll look first at the extra length point suits for declarer, because this is something new. Declarer will add 1 more point for each card over 5 in the trump suit. So if declarer had a 6 card suit that is now going to be trumps, he would now add an additional 1 point. If he had a 7 card suit that's going to be trumps, he would now add an additional 2 points, and so on. He also adds 1 point for any side 4 card suit, and this is useful because if partner has fits for the side card suit, you're going to set the long suit up. If he's short in the long suit, you can rough more than 1 in dummy. So he gets 1 extra point for any side 4 card or longer suit. He gets 1 point for a 4 card suit, 1 point for a 5 card suit, 1 point for a 6 card side suit. They're all the same. Now, short points for declarer, he doesn't get any points for having 1 doubleton. 1 doubleton is useless to him. If he has 2 or 3 doubletons, he can add 1 point total for having 2 or 3 doubletons. If he has a singleton, he can add 2 points, and if he has a void, he adds 4 points. So here we'll do some calculations of declarer points. We'll start in the upper left hand corner where the hand shown starts off with 14 starting points, and once partner supports your club suit, you can add 1 point for the 6th club. You have no other side 4 card suit, so you don't get an additional extra length point, but you do have 2 doubletons, so you get 1 point. You would of course got no points for only 1 doubleton. Now we'll drop down to the hand on the lower left hand side. After partner supports your spade suit, you start off with 6 starting points. You get 2 points for the 2 side 4 card suits or longer, 1 for each, and you also get 4 points for a void. Now remember, these are declarer points, and you don't get 5 points for the void even though you have 5 trumps. Declarer never gets more than 4 points for a void. Now we're moved to the hand in the upper right hand corner where you start off with 18 starting points. Don't forget the add your aces and tens and subtract your queens and jacks, and that got you up to 18 starting points. You get 1 point for the side 4 card or longer suit, in this case clubs. You get 4 points for the void again for 23 starting points. Now I want to highlight something about the hand in the bottom right that's important when you start using these distributional points. This hand started off with 15 starting points. When partner supports the club suit, it gets 1 point for the sixth club, and it gets 4 points for having two singletons, 2 points each, 2 points for the singleton spade, 2 points for the singleton heart. Now the problem here is this is 20 points, and if you tell your partner that you have 20 points and this is all you really have in the way of values, if partner has the ace queen of diamonds, the king of clubs, the king jack of hearts, and the king queen jack of spades, he's going to think, oh my goodness, we've got 70 points or something crazy, and bid too much. So you got to bear in mind when you start adding up these distributional points, some hands that aren't that really strong in the way of trick taking power can total up to a lot of points. Don't let that stop you bidding at like 20, but bear in mind that your partner might think you have a stronger hand when you show this hand is worth 20 points. So now we'll just go back to that original hand we showed in the beginning where you started off with 13 spades and we said, can you get to 40 points? Well, let's apply Marty Bergens' method to this. You have 10 high card points. You get another point for the quality spade suit. I would say that's a very high quality suit. And you have 9 cards, counting starting at the 5th through 13th, that you get 1 additional point. So your starting points for this hand is 20 points. So next, you don't need to really have partner support you anymore, because what you want is an 8 card or longer fit. Well, since you have 13 cards in the suit, you've got your 8 card longer suit fit. So you start with 20 starting points. You get 8 points now. You get a point for every card over the 5th card in the suit, and there's 8 of those cards. You get 8 points for that. So that gets you to 28. So you've got 3 voids. You get 4 points for each void. That's 12 points for a total of 40 points. So this hand comes out with the maximum number of points that you need to bid and make a grand slam. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this point count method in the other videos. So when I refer to starting points or dummy points, this is how I calculate those.